this is what parents are for. The parents are there to help each other, like, because that's how they raise their kids too, right? So the parent is teaching the child to cooperate. So the grandparent is teaching, treats the parent with cooperation, right? So it's a very
so
different view. So different.
But I think, the way that translates here, it's kind of like if you're the mom with the tantruming kid and you see other, parents doing, especially elderly people, it's like the opposite of what you explain from these
Right.
indigenous cultures. It's like, especially if it's somebody that's like a lot older, they're super judgy typically.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Like they're
Yeah.
extra judgy. And
Yes.
and that's why I'm like, arm yourself with a line. It's hard to be 3, or it's
Right.
hard to be 4. It's hard to
Right.
be 5. You're not open for feedback. My name's Randy Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast. At Mastermind Parenting, we're on a mission to support strong-willed kids and the families that love them. Welcome to a meaty 2-part episode with my favorite author of the parenting phenom book, Hunt, Gather, Parent, Michaeleen Doucleff. I had an amazing conversation with her. In fact, it was so amazing. We couldn't stop talking. It was all about judgment, grandparent judgment, other parents' judgment, just judgment over your parenting, judgment over other people's parenting, just judgment in general. I knew it was going to be a meaty conversation. And it was like, I want to say about 3/4 of the way through, I was like, yeah, this is going to be a 2-parter. So welcome to part 1 of my conversation with Michaeleen Doucleff, all about parent judgment. I think you guys are going to love this conversation, and I'm excited. I'm excited for you to be a fly on the wall of the love affair I'm having with Michaeleen. I just think she is the most delightful human and a breath of fresh air. And this topic that's been on my mind lately, which is all about performative parenting, right? Like, oh, I need to pretend to be the perfect parent, and I'm going to judge everyone else who has normal human children who are having normal human moments and pass judgment and give them the eyes and make them feel worse about whatever it is they're dealing with. Like, I'm so over it. I'm so over, I really think it's that I'm so over inauthenticity, which I know that's even the word authentic, it's kind of like the word vulnerability. I feel like it's all been so overused, but what Michaeleen brings is she's such a breath of fresh air because she's just such a real person. And because she's a journalist, really, like, her passion is right. Every time we're talking about something, she's like, I need to write something about that. I need to write something about that. She's such a journalist, and she's so curious, and she's been in the trenches with all the real people, observing them. And she just has, I think, a love for humanity. She brings a really fresh perspective, and I'm just loving anytime I get a chance to sit next to her. I'm just loving it. So I'm excited for you guys to hear. Here's part 1. Hi, everyone. I'm here with Michaeleen Doucleff, and this is our 2nd episode in our Hunt, Gather, Parent series. And today we're going to be talking about judgy adults. Judgy adults, meaning other adults, grandparents, neighbors, all the people. I think this is a topic that affects every parent I've ever known. It's a loaded one. So
Yes.
yeah. So we're excited to kind of dig into talking about judgment. It's hard to detox from judgment I think it's hard. Like, I find me and my husband have been like doing a little challenge. Like, we want to go 1 week without judging anyone. And
That's good.
yeah, it's really, he's like, should we like put a penny in a jar? And I'm like, yeah, we could put a penny every time we judge. We'll put a penny in a jar. He's like, but where do we find pennies?
Maybe need $1.
Yeah, he's like, where do we find pennies? And I was like, yeah, but I don't think it's enough to just put the penny in a jar. Like, I think we have to, I was like, I read a book about judgment years ago
Mm.
that all judgment is a self-projection.
Yes, I think
Like,
so.
right. So like we judge other people for things that we secretly judge ourselves for, but we're looking for evidence out there of somebody doing it even worse
Mm.
so that we can feel temporarily better,
Mm.
which I think is a hard thing to look at, right? Like, and he didn't get it. He was like, what does that mean exactly? And I gave him an example. I was like, okay, so I have a super selfish mom
Mm-hmm.
trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think as a kid, I felt like my mom was a selfish mom. Like it was always just like what she wanted to do when she wanted to do it. And I don't know, I just felt like that. Anyway, so so I have a selfish mom trigger. So I would find myself judging other moms
Mm-hmm.
that in my brain I deemed as selfish, like more
Mm.
than like self-care. Like it's always about them. They're never
Yeah.
looking at their kids' perspective. They're never, and that's where I go sort of that to that below the line place. And he's like, but you're not a selfish mom. Like,
Right.
so,
Right.
so how is that a self-projection? And I was like, but I have been a selfish mom.
And
And
you
he's
fear
like,
it.
yeah, I was like, I have been. And he's like, I was like, and like on something that I'm super ashamed about. And he's like, what? I was like, all my years of closet smoking.
Oh.
To me, that's the ultimate selfish mom move. Like
Mm.
here, I'm all about trying to be the best mom and even going into this field of parenting, yada, yada, yada. But like, how many years was I so excited to put the kids to bed so I could go and sneaky smoke? And
We all have though that how many times have I tried to put the kids to bed so we can go sneaky something?
yeah, right.
Mine for a while was go sneaky Netflix. It's like get to bed
Yeah.
so mama can watch Succession.
Yes,
It's
exactly. Like, I mean, but I was like, and not only is my sneaky, the sneaky smoking is like, oh, and like, it is a fact that this is so bad for you. Like this is putting stuff into my body that it's proven kills people.
Yes.
Right. And so I was like, so here I'm like, jeopardizing my life. Like one of my biggest fears would be when my kids were little to leave them motherless. And I'm over here after a whole day of trying to be a good mom. And then I'm going and like doing this thing. Like, what a fucking fraud.
Oh,
and,
Randy.
you know, and so secretly, I felt like the ultimate selfish mom. And
Hmm.
so I was like, so now like I can really look at that now because I haven't sneaky smoked in years. And at this point my kids are old enough that it wouldn't even be sneaky smoking. They'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, right? Like, all right. But so I can look at it now, but before we're ready to look at it, I think that's when we're in the most judgment is because we haven't been able to look at it. So anyway, so I said, so if we're going to put a penny in the jar, then we have to have a conversation about, and like, or not even a conversation, but like even just like connecting dots about what exactly was I judging the person for, and where do I secretly judge myself in some
Mm.
way for that same
Mm.
thing? He was like, oh, this is getting too heady.
It's interesting because like I kind of agree with him. I think you're right, totally. But I also think that people judge moms, dads, parents, grandparents because that's how they've been treated.
Mhm.
That's how they've been trained to interact. I mean, when you talk about judgy parents and the way I've, I mean, feel it all the time, right? I mean, a little bit less now because I've kind of created an environment where I try not to hang out with those people, but when they're your
Mhm.
parents, it's much harder. But I think of like mean girls on the playground. I think of mean girls in middle school. It is what parents around the world would say is like, this is just immaturity. This is an emotional stunting, because
Mm.
a mature adult and a mature parent is supportive of a parent struggling, is supportive, and we go back to like the really core of the book Hunt Gather Parent is like, how do you teach a child to cooperate? Well, a parent that is judging you has never been taught how to cooperate, right? They've been taught that this is it's a habit. It's like when you see somebody doing something wrong, you judge them. That's the only route their brain goes down, because they've never
Mm.
been taught a different way. They've never been treated a different way, right?
That's interesting. I wonder if that also goes into when we're raised. Okay, so in the last 100 years in our
Yes.
traditional Western society, and kids are are educated in these classrooms,
Yes.
and so often they're compared to one another. They're
That's right.
graded, they're compared. It's all
Competition.
about, right, there's so much competition. There's so much, about wanting to be seen in a certain way by the teacher,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes.
and it be the head of the class, be the kid that the teacher adores, the kind of kid that the teacher loves to teach, right? And
Right.
so if you're constantly pitted against your peers,
Yes.
like that's part of your conditioning. And so then you look
That's right.
at anyone who is a peer parent and they're your competition, and you
That's
sort of
right.
want to take them down to make yourself look better.
That's right. It's just the way, especially girls. I mean, people have written about this a lot, and I've been reading about it because I'm trying to understand it in my life now as a 46-year-old. I still feel like this dynamic is happening in my life with other women, but it's the way girls have learned to interact with each other, right? It's a kind of a relational aggression, and it's very common, and it continues into adulthood, and so it's unconscious. I don't think that people are aware. That's why I love that you're doing this thing with the pennies, because that's raising your consciousness of it, right? Because it's habit. It's like that's how you respond when somebody looks like they're struggling, which is
Hmm.
like, if you think about it, a horrible way to respond. like and I wrote down when I was preparing for this, is like, that's what we're modeling to kids, that when somebody's struggling, when somebody's having a hard time with their kid, or the kid's having a tantrum in the grocery store, and I goodness knows have I been there, it's like the other moms are modeling like a judgment to this mom. I mean, I even said to one mom in San Francisco, she was judging me or whatever, and I turned to her and I was like, great modeling for your child. Which maybe isn't the right response, but in the moment, like, I was really struggling, and this mom was like putting me down in public, and I was like, what are you teaching your child? And so what I've tried to learn is like to see this person that's judging me in public or in private as a stunted child emotionally. It's like they haven't learned a more productive, a better way of treating people who are struggling, and I feel sorry for them.
I like that. I like that. I've taught a lot of moms um about, like when they're following through on the 3-year-old at, the grocery store or Target. They're always like badgering the parents, and
Yes.
like they want this thing and they want that thing and they want this
Yes.
and no matter what, it's always going to turn out to be a tantrum. But they're
Yes.
they're used to getting the stuff, and the parent just
Right.
gets beaten down, and so they just keep buying the thing and buying the thing and
Right.
buying the thing. And so I'm like, so this is the thing, is that you're taking what's quick, fast, and easy, which it's never that quick, fast, and easy, because no matter what you get them, they're always going to want something else and something else and something
Right.
else.
Right.
Um, but everybody talks about entitled teenagers. They don't want to have the entitled teenagers. And so if you just buy them all the things and they get all the things, how are you not going to have the teenager at 16 that expects the
Right.
whatever car with the big red bow? Like,
Right.
so if you
You've
don't
trained them.
want that, right? If you don't want that, then you got to start saying, and so I'll teach like birthday list, Hanukkah and Christmas list or whatever. And I'm like, so whenever your kid wants something, you come from a place of yes, and you don't buy them the thing. Oh, yes, you love
Right.
that thing. Should you
Right.
put it on your birthday or your Hanukkah list? And so they're like, but what do you do when they're used to getting this stuff and you're at
Mm-hmm.
Target?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so you buckle them in and you get through your errand as quickly as possible and you let them do their thing. You don't make eye contact
Yeah.
because, if you
Yeah.
make eye contact, you're going to get hooked in. So you don't
Right.
make eye contact. You're pushing along, you're getting through your thing as quickly as possible. And if any other adult in that store makes eye contact with you because you have
Yes.
a kid that's like losing their mind, all you say is, I know it's so hard to be three. It is. It's hard to be three. And you just keep going. That's your response to anyone that you perceive to be judging you.
It's so fascinating because gets to the other point I wrote down. In our culture, we have this view that that the child's behavior is this total reflection of the parent. Right,
Mm-hmm.
that if whatever the child, especially even these very young children, right, a 3-year-old, right, like we think that whatever, if the child's misbehaving, that's because the parent is a bad parent. And we expect 1, 2, 3-year-olds who have no emotional development, no logical brain, like complete bags of emotion. We expect them to behave like they're, 50-year-old women that have gone through like some, courtesy classes, right? We have these such high bars for them. And all around the world, when I was traveling, parents have a totally different view. First of all, the 1 through 4, 5-year-olds are supposed to act crazy and are supposed to be having tantrums. So if you see a
Yeah.
mom with a kid with a tantrum, well, that's just a kid,
Yeah.
that's just a mom with a kid. It has nothing to do with the parents. It's like kids, these little ones are supposed to be wild hyenas they can't control their emotions. That is just a small child. And so there's
Well, and let
no blaming the parent.
let me say this also. Um, the story that you share in the book about when the mom, I think it was the Inuit mom,
Yes.
says, like, it's just the two of you all the time. Like, aren't y'all
Yes.
sick of each other? Right? Like, isn't
Yes. So
she
there's a
sick of
couple.
you too?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's a couple stories that really resonate here from up there. One was, so I was with Rosie in the Arctic we were up there like 2 weeks or so. But the first couple days, I didn't really know many people. And so I was just kind of wandering around with her all the time. And this mom literally ran out her door and said, I see you with her every day by yourself and you need help. Let me take her for you. You need a break. Like, this is the difference, right? I mean, these moms knew I was doing 100 things wrong. I mean, there was no doubt. At the end, one of them even said it, right? But they never came out and said, this is all the things you're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They said, let me help you. They
So
modeled
good.
the behavior, and it was just this, that is the job of the family, the job of the neighborhood, the job of community is to support each other. And in the Yucatan, one of the anthropologists, psychologists that studies indigenous parenting told me, and it took me a little while to understand this concept, but I kind of do, is that everybody is on your team and you're on everybody else's team. But you're kind of the captain of your team and they respect that. And they're the captain of their team and they respect that. So it's not like we're all just kind of the same, but we're all supporting each other and we're all supporting each other's goals. And you saw this everywhere. Like a little kid would be out riding her bike and she's kind of too small for the bike. And, she was kind of stumbling a little bit. And then she kind of rolled off this like hill one time, and then 3 moms came rushing out, and like, and it was this is what parents are for. The parents are there to help each other, like, because that's how they raise their kids too, right? So the parent is teaching the child to cooperate, so the grandparent is teaching, treats the parent with cooperation, right? So it's a
It's
very
so
different
different.
view, so different.
But I think, the way that translates here, it's kind of like if you're the mom with the tantruming kid and you see other, parents doing, especially elderly people, it's like the opposite of what you explain from these
Right.
indigenous cultures. It's like, especially if it's somebody that's like a lot older, they they're super judgy typically,
Yeah, I know.
right? Like they're
Yeah.
extra judgy, and
Yes.
that's why I'm like, arm yourself with a line. It's hard to be
Mm-hmm,
3,
mm-hmm.
or it's
Right.
hard to be 4. It's hard to
Right.
be 5. You're not open for feedback. And that's your
Right.
way of
No, no.
just getting right. Like
Just
you
don't
don't have to
care. I
like,
mean, just don't
right.
care.
But I was
Like,
like, because they perceive it so much. So I'm like, if you have to say anything and you accidentally make eye contact with the judger, this is your line that will help you to stay out of that negative thought loop and
yeah,
feel so judged and go into that place, because that's not going to be helpful for your kid. This is what's going to help
no.
you to stay grounded. And if you're the person on the outside and you're witnessing a mom with a kid, who's being a normal developing kid and having a maniacal moment, then something that I do is I will quite often interact with the kid a little bit. Like if
Mm,
I make eye contact with the kid, I'm like, what do you have there? Oh my gosh, did you pick out that shirt yourself? You just, because it reminds me of the thing of like, it's just the two of you all the time. Don't y'all need a break?
right.
And,
Right.
and when I sort of like make a little conversation with the kid, not the mom, because when you make conversation with the mom, I feel like now you're just adding to her sensory
Stress.
overload, because
Yeah.
she's trying to manage her kid. She's
And
worried
she
about
doesn't
being in
know
public.
what you're coming at, right? She's expecting judgment.
Yes. And she's also now has to make a conversation. And so
Right.
it's like more on her. But if I just like try to sort of light interact with the kid and give each of them a tiny break just for even a
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
I find so often that like it works. It works. Next thing you know, the mom's smiling because I just like complimented her kid or talked about it,
Yeah.
like did not
Oh,
notice the
Randy.
tantrum. And then she's smiling, and then and then she kind of wants to be like, yeah, my kid is cute, And so then she starts to interact with the kid a little differently, and something kind of snaps them out of
You
that a
break
little
the
bit.
tension,
And
right?
uh-huh.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's fascinating because it reminds me, like, that's the role of other adults and kids as well in so many communities. I remember one time Rosie and I were in a room in the Arctic, and there were probably like 5 or 6 kids in this little room, and then like 4 or 5 parents, just a small living room. So it was very busy, and there was a little baby. I think he was like 9 months old, and I counted how many different people picked up this baby. And so they would like put the baby down, and within seconds, another parent would come over and pick up the baby, and then they put the baby down, and then like a kid would come over and play with the baby, and then like there was never a moment where this baby was like more than, cried for more than a few seconds, because that was the role of this network of people, was to help the baby and take care and entertain and interact with and engage with. And so you were doing that for this. That's what you're doing, is you're providing this little bit of outside help. And not only is that helpful to the mom, but that's so helpful for the kid, right? To interact
Well,
with
I
somebody
think
that they don't know, and like, and you're bringing them out of this tantrum, and like, it's beautiful, Randy.
thank you. No, I
You
mean,
did
I
it.
feel like it's also countercultural, because I think most parents think the opposite. Don't talk to my kid. Like if, and it mostly comes in the state of like some parent admonishing another kid on the playground or something,
Right,
but it's
right.
like, how dare you talk to my child? I've heard like public figures talk about how the one topic that is off limits is parenting because it's so personal, and the way
Yes.
people do it with their kids is their business. And if you dare to interact with someone else's child without their permission, even if the person's right there, even when I do it in this helpful way, it's almost a little bit jarring to people because you're
Yeah.
really not supposed to talk to other people, strangers, children. Everybody's children are taught stranger danger. Like, so for some stranger to start just having the gall to interact with your child, like that's not the way we do things here. It's almost like it's like, and I've even questioned myself at times, like, is this a boundary violation? Am I being nosy or intrusive to be doing this? Like I've questioned myself about it, but that's what I mean. Like, so many stories from your books and your research lets me know, like, no, it's all good. Like, keep doing that. You're breaking the
I
tension.
think,
You're
I
being
mean,
helpful.
I think keep doing it. I think when you feel like a person is struggling and you help, you're doing so much more than helping those people. I mean, think of it from another perspective. So when we travel, when Rosie and I travel, even not for the book, you know, parents love talking to her. Like, like just everywhere. They just, especially when she was a baby, it's like, oh, the baby, the cute baby. And oh, hey, baby. This doesn't happen in America so much. But what I started to realize was these parents are teaching their children that they love little babies and they love little kids. And we are kind and gentle and excited to see a baby and a kid. And that's I think one of the reasons why siblings get along, because it isn't just like, oh, this baby. I
Right.
can't, it's like they're excited to be around children. They're excited to be with a kid. And so if you have children of your own and you're going up and helping this little kid and you're talking to them in this, like, with joy and excitement in your body and in what you're saying, you're modeling to your kids that this is how we treat other kids. This is how we
Yeah. And
treat people that are younger than us. And they're these little creatures that we need to be kind to and we need to be sensitive to, and we help.
And I would say that's exactly the case in my family. Like Corey just said, I want to say 2 nights ago, he said, I think we need to adopt a little kid.
Oh,
And Scott, who, our big joke is that he didn't want more than 2 kids. I'm like, Corey, you're lucky you're here. Like, this is a 2-kid dad. Like, I had to squeeze in the third, and thank goodness you're you, because he was a 2-kid man. And Corey's like, I think, like, it's just fun. It's just fun to have a little. I was like when Isabel comes over, my niece, she comes over one afternoon a week, and I was like when Isabel's here, he's like, yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun to have a little kid
exactly.
around. And
Exactly. And
yeah.
yeah, exactly. There's a positive association with smaller children, right? And something, and that I think it's one of the key reasons why siblings get along in a lot of other cultures, because I think that there's this negative association. It's like, oh, a little kid, oh, it's such a burden, right? And
Yeah.
like, and a tantruming one at that, and it's like, so I love that, and I do it even when they're not tantruming around, because when Rosie's with me, I do it. I'm like, oh, look at the little baby. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
babies at the soccer practice, toddlers. I'm like, oh, Stella's here. Rosie, let's go talk to her. Cute little Stella. Hi. And then Rosie, and that's how Rosie learns to be kind to younger children, is through me being kind to younger children, right?
That's so
And showing
interesting.
interest.
Yes. It is so interesting because I have to say, like, just traveling with Corey last weekend. So we're on the plane and we're on a Southwest flight, and it was packed. Holiday weekend, right? Going to Colorado. And you see the one time, even those of us who love little kids, the one time that we don't love them so much is on airplanes. And
Yes, it's a trying
right.
situation.
Yeah. And there were these 2 little kids in line. There was a lot of stories with little kids,
Mm.
and I didn't even notice it, but now I'm thinking about it. we were in line, you know how you get your number on Southwest, and we're like waiting in line, and there was this young family, and they had a baby in a stroller in like the baby carrier, and then they had like a probably 2.5 year old. And oh my gosh, like these both of them were like, she was feeding them snacks, and it was this, and the baby's crying, and then the 2.5 year old and doing all the things, and all the people standing around crammed waiting to get on the plane. You know, it was almost like it's like that awkward moment or whatever.
Yeah.
And I looked at Corey, and I looked at this other kid that we knew that was there, and I looked at both of them, and I said, you guys were those kids. And every
Oh,
parent here is
yes.
identifying right now with, like, even though y'all don't remember, we remember. And
Yeah.
so everyone's identifying with exactly what's happening, and
Yeah.
feeling all the feels, and it's taking us right back to when we were those parents.
Yeah.
um and I said it out loud to them also because I wanted to break the tension, and I kind of wanted those people to overhear it, and I
Right.
wanted
Right.
the other judgy parents. I could
Right.
feel the judgment, I could
Right.
feel the
Because they were
tension.
judged. Because they were judged in those moments. They
Right.
felt right.
So
So that it's just the
carrying
training.
it forward. Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's just like carrying it forward. And I'm like, and so I said that, but then I also noticed that Corey kept pointing out the whole time we were traveling cute babies and cute little kids.
Oh.
And there was this mom walking up, and this pregnant mom walking up and down the aisles on our flight there with a little probably 2 year old who was running. And Corey's like, oh my God, look at this little girl. She's so cute. She's so cute. And
Oh.
and the mom was walking by. She was all, you know, like waddling down the aisle. And she's like, we just got to get a few sillies out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. And Corey's like, she's so cute. She's so cute. And he really does have an appreciation for little kids.
Because you've taught him it. I mean, part of it is that. And the other thing I can say is that when kids are struggling, having an emotional moment, or the parents are struggling, the other thing I say, and I learned this straight from our travels, especially when Rosie's around, I say, poor thing, poor thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's having a hard time, poor thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you're teaching empathy, right?
So
You're teaching
beautiful.
that we have empathy for these little ones when they're struggling. And I love that you say, like, you remember. That's great. Like, I remember when you struggled like that, and look how far you've come. And then there's like a proud look on her face or something. But it's like, poor thing, she's really having a hard time. I wish we could help her. Or could we help her?
Right.
And
Like when a baby's crying on a plane, and everyone's starting to get annoyed, and I like will look at my kids, and I'm like, oh, the ears. The ears, they
yeah,
don't know
the ears,
yet how to pop their
exactly.
ears. They don't know how to
Yeah.
pop their ears yet. So they're just sitting there with the ears. You know what that feels like? What if you couldn't pop them?
And like, it's an uncomfortable situation for everybody, the planes, right? And
Mm-hmm.
those little babies, they weren't designed to be sitting on a plane, they're going through a lot. Sometimes I'll even have Rosie go over, like if we're waiting in line somewhere, or I'll say, go over and play with the little one, go show them this, like, because that is really the role of the older child in a lot of communities. Is they like playing with the little ones. They're really built for that, right? And she loves it. We were waiting in Midland. We had like a 2-hour wait for the bus, and this little boy was just going nuts. And I said, Rosie, go over there and roll the suitcases with him, And they did it for like an hour and a half. Like, it was,
So
and
good.
she loved it. So I enlist them instead of being judgy to the parent. I enlist Rosie as the. There's something I want to I that keeps coming up in my mind about being judgy, and it's something that I noticed when we were in the Arctic, and then I started noticing it everywhere. And actually, I found that this has been documented in a lot of communities. Is parents and children, as a result, don't ask, why are you doing it? So we are really, really, really in love with this. Why are you doing something a certain way? Like, why are you setting the table like that? Or why are you cooking the eggs like this? This is a question that is, and once you start paying attention to it, you find it everywhere. And if you think about it, it's like this incredibly judgmental question, right? Because you're insinuating that the person's doing it wrong. and that you know how to do it better. And so I've come to be really conscious of when I use that question, and it's not the why of like science why or nature why or like, why does the bird fly? It's not like that, right? It's more of like, why did you send this to somebody? Why did you, it's more questioning a person's actions. And it's a very judgy question. And I think it breeds a lot of conflict, but I think it also breeds a lot of insecurity and self-doubt in a person if other people around them are constantly questioning why are you doing something. So for me, that's when I've been trying to not be so judgy. I've really gotten rid of that question in my life.
That's so good. Yeah, that's so good. Or even somebody was telling me a story about something that I can't remember exactly what it was. It was one of my moms who was telling me their kid did something, and they something that was clearly not okay. And they called the mom called her mom, and she was just venting. And then the mom said, "Well, what are you going to do about it?"
Mm.
And I was like, there's this thing that I think we can ask ourselves: is it helpful or hurtful?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
Right, like, she's venting because there's this situation, and it's an unfortunate situation, and she calls her mom for support, which was
Right.
mostly
Right.
just empathy, right?
Right.
And then her mom puts her on the spot.
Right.
Well, how are you going to
Right.
handle this? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And she feels judged in that
Right.
moment just by that question,
Right.
right? And so it's
Right.
like taking a moment when somebody says something to you, and asking yourself, does this feel helpful or hurtful?
Yes.
And when it feels hurtful in any way, like, just saying to the person, yeah, not helpful. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna,
And
like,
it's
that's
something
just not helpful.
I teach Rosie. I mean, we talk about that a lot. I try to put her in the other person's shoes, right? If I said this to you, would this feel good, or would this make you feel bad? And most of the time she sits there and she thinks about it, and she knows, oh, that would make me feel bad. It's like, well, do you want to make this person feel bad? No, I don't. Right, but it's very subconscious, I think, in our society, because it happens so much. We say, I mean, elementary kids can be so mean to each other, and I think it comes a lot from the parents. The parents say these things. Why did you put it like that? Why did you make your bed like that? What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing it like that? And it becomes just this kind of automatic response. And I think the kids don't really even know that they're hurting another person.
Mm.
And it's really teaching them to think a little bit, like, how does my action, my statements affect the feelings of another person? This is not taught in our society in many, many cases. And it's something that me and my husband have had to work with, because we had the same habits, right? We're part of the same training. But you're so right, just stopping for a second and saying, is what I'm going to say now going to help and boost the person's confidence and boost their, make them feel good and make our relationship better? Or is it going to undermine their confidence and hurt them and kind of make them question? And I'm telling you, if you pay attention, you'll see a lot of them are whys.
Mm-hmm.
It's very fascinating. You don't hear why in so many cultures. Children don't ask why. Why? And it's because the parents aren't. If somebody's doing something and being helpful, you accept that help. You accept the way they've done it. Maybe you come in and you tidy it up a little bit, but you don't question it. You don't question help. You don't
Mm-hmm.
question when a person's trying their best. It's a
I
very
think it's so
bossy
good.
question.
It is a bossy question. It is a bossy question. In fact, I was trained with a coaching tool called the 5 Whys,
Mm,
and it's always sort of rubbed me wrong. Um, but it's really something to ask yourself
that's right.
when something is
That's right.
upsetting you, and then you say to yourself, well, why is this really a problem?
Right. Yeah.
right?
I mean,
And,
there's a lot of ways of asking why. I think that it gets
no, but even when I don't have a problem giving myself some tough love. Like, why is this really a problem? And
right.
then I
Right.
dig down and dig down and dig down, and then I get to the root of what's really going on when
Right.
you go through that series of whys. So when I use it, I really don't use it except with my super advanced students, right? Because they really trust me and they know. I mean, that's what they all say
That
all
you're
the
trying to
time is
help.
that, but they just know it's a judgment-free zone. I mean, I share
Right.
so many
Right.
of my personal stories and teach through story and use stories in my coaching, and it's real, it's authentic, and they know that. And so it's a judgment-free zone. And I think that's why my community is so beautiful, is because we have figured out a way to sort of bring back this sense of community from these ancient cultures where it's just love and support, and we're
Yeah.
not we're
Yeah.
all workshopping things together, we're all in it together. And so when I use the 5 whys with my people that totally trust me and know for sure, see me for who I am, I'm like, okay, so we're going to go through the 5 whys, and remember, we're just trying to get to the root of what's really going on. So this is really about you asking yourself this,
Mm.
and you may want to punch me in the face for asking this question, but I just want you to know kind of the reasoning behind it. Like, I
Yes.
always feel the need to qualify it just a little bit to remind them. Remember, this is the point of this exercise. This is not because I'm really asking you why
And
and
Randy,
putting
there's
you
a
on the
very,
spot.
I mean, something very different than what I was talking about is these people have asked you for help. They've asked you for your help and your insights. And I'm talking about when a person or a kid is just at the
Yeah.
kitchen trying to do the best they can. And you're just like, why are you doing, there's like, they're not at, right. It's a very different, I think it's a
But
very different
even when
scenario.
but even in the scenario of them they're here because they want me to coach them, I
Yes,
still feel like the word why is feels accusatory in some way,
exactly. That is
right?
exactly what I was trying to say.
I'm in full agreement. I'm like, that's why I think I qualify it all the time, because I'm
Yeah.
like, I know this works if you're asking it to yourself, but anytime somebody else is asking you a why question, it feels accusatory, and
Yes. And
that
it
that
also
doesn't
comes
feel
from,
helpful.
this perspective as a parent. If we go back to the parent child of like the parent assuming they have all the knowledge, right?
Right.
And a lot of,
Right.
really learning to cooperate with a person is like, is accepting that you don't have all the knowledge and you could learn something from somebody else. You can't cooperate if you think you have all the knowledge, right? You're never going to be able to cooperate with your child if you think you teach everything and all the knowledge flows from you to your child. You have to open up the possibility that they're going to teach you something. And the question why comes from this, is a standpoint of like, I know how to do it and you don't. It's a
So
very,
true. But I think that's part of our culture. It's like
yes, it is.
the parent is the all-knowing parent. I mean,
That's
it's
right.
kind of like, it's like people who believe that you should never apologize to your kid or own your mistake,
That's
that,
right.
and I'm like, okay, well, owning your mistake and apologizing is one of the best ways to build connection,
That's
and
right.
to
That's
have a
right.
real conversation. Like not apologizing to your kid, you're missing a huge opportunity and an easy way to connect and be human to human. Thanks for listening today, guys. I hope you picked up some tips, tools, maybe some baby steps for creating more balance and boundaries in your life. And I just wanted to let you know, if you want to continue moving the needle forward in creating this for yourself, having a happier household, I want you to go to my website and check out mastermindparenting.com. We have 3 beginning programs, and if you need some accountability and more support, then please look for the one that would be a good fit for you. And as always, we're on all the social channels under Mastermind Parenting. On Instagram, it's mastermind_parenting. And, periodically I do pop up on different Instagram lives, Facebook lives, where I give you teaching and coaching, and I love engaging with you live to help you help your strong-willed kids so that they can feel better, because when they feel better, they do better. And I love, love, love getting to know you guys. So thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Super, super appreciative.